Hi, I'm Durald Arkapaw, and I'm the cinematographer for Sinners, and I'm on Get Wrecked with Straw Hat Goofy.
Wake up, Juju. Time to go to work. All right, can we talk about wake up, I get it, I get it, wake up, I get it, I go with everyone saying I'm up next. It's not my fault that the vocals are gold, they're making the haters so upset. My life is a movie, the way that I roll. They saying I'm goofy, but baby, you know I'm making everybody obsessed. Cause we the best, how we get wrecked, and I know we're gonna get wrecked, 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 we're gonna get wrecked.
What's going on, everybody? It's your boy Juju Green, aka Straw Hat Goofy. You're a movie guy, and we are on episode 2 of our famous Sinners series, where we talk to cast, crew, and everyone involved in the making of Sinners. As you guys know, Sinners is my favorite film of 2025, best film of the year, one of the best films of the 21st century. But I'm glazing. Right now, we have a very special guest, someone who is a master at her craft. We got Durald Arkapaw. How are we doing? Thank you so much for talking to me today.
Pleasure.
I feel like this is a long time coming. We see each other at events all the time, but true to your legend status, you are swarmed by so many people with questions, admiration, and praise. And I just looked at, every time we looked at each other, we always had this look of, we'll get together. It's going to happen.
Yeah. No, totally. You're not lying.
And this is that moment, and I'm really happy when these moments like come to fruition for us. So thank you so much for talking to me today. Really excited to really just jump into this film. I think this film is just all around stunning, but from a visual standpoint, it's on another level. It's absolutely insane. And just before we like really get into it, this movie has been making like a ton of like awards pushes and just getting nominated and winning left and right. And just like from your standpoint, I want to name a couple of them if you would allow me to just kind of like hype you up a little bit. Recently, you got the IndieWire Impact Award, which, very congratulations on that. Nominee for the American Society of Cinematographers, the British Society of Cinematographers, a Critics' Choice Award nominee as Outstanding Achievement in Cinematography from the National Board of Review. You won that. And you're on Variety's 2025 Artisans to Watch. Is your head getting big yet? How is it not?
It's interesting because, like, when you make a film with a family, right, that you're friends with, and you really want like all of those artisans to shine, and you like them and you hang out with them outside of work, it makes this easy. It's not easy time wise because it takes a lot of your time out of your day, but it's easy to talk about because we had such an amazing time making it. I love everyone I made it with, and I think that's important to shout it out because a lot of like kind of young up and coming people that look like you and I, it's nice for them to see us out there and to see that we're doing that work and then to hear about it. So I always look up to Ryan because he's very inspiring. You see how good he is when
Oh my God.
when he talks and he does all these things. So he's kind of my inspiration. Like I started off maybe not so good, and then I studied his videos. I was like, oh, okay. Just be yourself. That's his biggest thing is just be yourself. He always tells me that when we're on set. And I think that rings true into everything that he does. So.
Yeah, I mean, it completely shows in both of your work. Like, obviously, like, I've been a huge admirer for Ryan, and I'm lucky enough to call him a friend now. But the humbleness that comes off of him, the openness and the curiosity is just absolutely, like, out of this world. And the battery that he puts in your back to just be you because he knows that your perspective matters when it comes to creating this piece of art form. And I just want to like dive a little bit deeper into because you and Ryan, you refer to each other as your best friends. Like he calls you sis, you call him bro. And I want to like kind of like dive into kind of like where did that first meeting happen? What was your first impression of him upon that first meeting? And how do you reflect on that now that you guys are kind of like working on these massive films today?
Yeah, I've been fortunate enough to work with friends, right? And I think how that works is like I went to AFI, which is a film school in Los Angeles. And you make friends there, and then when you graduate, you get jobs from your friends. People are recommending you, and so there's a circle that happens, kind of, as far as like how you get jobs and who you meet. And I've met a couple people that recommended me to him that kind of play in the same pool. And early on, they recommended me for Creed, which I didn't end up shooting, but I didn't have enough credits at the time.
Right.
Bradford Young recommended me, and we didn't meet, Ryan and I. And then Rachel Morrison, who's a good friend, who also went to AFI, who I've been friends with for a while. and she wasn't going to do Wakanda because she was directing her own picture, and said to Ryan, mentioned me to Ryan, and so it was kind of like these people knew I would get along with him. They
Right.
knew it would be a good fit, and I think that means something, right?
Mm-hmm.
If your community kind of, because you want to take care of your people, like if you
Of
can't be there
course.
for them or shoot their film, like Rachel wanted to make sure that she was recommending someone who would really, do a great job, but that would, join the team nicely. So
Right.
so we had a Zoom call. I was actually in Atlanta doing additional photography for Loki,
Yeah.
and I had heard that Rachel wasn't going to do it, so I had a Zoom call, and he's from Bay Area, I'm from Bay Area, so we hit it off. It was like talking to your cousin or something. It was
Right.
super chill. And then after that, I had a Zoom call with Hannah Beekler, who's our production designer, and that was hilarious. And yeah, it's like you're just off to the races from there because you just know in your gut when it's the right fit. You
Yeah.
know,
Well,
you just
that's
know.
that's incredible. Like
Yeah.
it's so funny because so you're saying like Wakanda Forever is like the first time that you and Ryan have like tried and true collaborated on a film.
Yeah.
I actually met him on the carpet of Wakanda Forever,
Oh,
which is
cool.
like pretty cool. So I think that's like really cool how like all of us are in this kind of circle, and Wakanda Forever is kind of the thing that brought us together. And I tell this story like all the time because it's one of my favorite stories. But obviously being a huge admirer of him ever since like Fruitvale Station and Creed is one of my favorite movies of all time. And I just wanted to tell him how much I admired him, and I actually stayed on the carpet longer than I was supposed to. You know how like they kind of like
Yeah.
start pushing everyone else
Yeah, they're like,
inside.
get off.
I stayed on there, and I said like I gotta meet this man. Like I just want to tell him how much like his work means to me. And luckily, like I just like called him out, and I was just kind of expecting him to walk away, but he stops and he listens, and he just said, "Hey, where are you from? Who are you?" And I started telling him, and as I was like describing myself, his eyes perk up and go, "Wait a minute, I know you. Like I've watched your stuff before."
Oh,
And
okay.
and that was one of those
You knew,
like,
yeah.
wait a minute, and ever since then, like our relationship just kind of like built from that, just like on this like again, he likes to look after his people. Like he watches his people and he wants to see them do like great things. So, I just think it's like awesome how like Wakanda Forever just kind of like brought us all together like in that sense. I want to talk about kind of like the origins of this film. I think it's well documented that Ryan really wanted to at first make this film on like a Super 16 format.
Yes,
And the
correct.
studio is actually the one that kind of like opened his mind up and said like, hey, what do you think about doing like a bigger format? But I want people to kind of like understand just how different this film could have looked if Ryan would have kind of like kept on that course. Movies that were shot in Super 16, this raw, more realistic feeling type of a film. Texas Chainsaw Massacre, The Hurt Locker, City of God, Black Swan, Clerks, and of course Fruitvale Station, which is a big reason why he wanted to
Yes, of course.
do Super 16. Can you like talk to me just like how different a movie like Sinners would have looked had he kept with that format, and what is it that the movie gains with this new larger format that's honestly it's revolutionary because no one's ever done this before?
Yeah, 16 is, I actually shot a picture right before this movie because I thought we were going to shoot on 16. I shot The Last Showgirl on 16 and was kind of getting my headspace in that kind of format. I had shot that for music videos and, fashion films before, but never a movie. And it's a camera that fits right on your shoulder. It's very ergonomic. Area 416, and you feel at one with it. So if you watch Fruitvale Station, it's something that Ryan liked, right? It's a
Right.
kind of a gritty way of making a film. You can run around with it. The mag changes are really easy. The mag snaps on the back. It's a completely different process, and also very, very much it's smaller negative.
Right.
So that's one version of the film, like your grindhouse version of Sinners, right? And then in transitioning to this like really large format, you're essentially putting the film on a bigger pedestal, right?
Yes,
It
of
has a lot
course.
of scope. There's so much history in that format. 65, the 5 perf, were the 11th film I think to shoot on Ultra Panavision 70. So it's something people don't use all the time. Hateful Eight used it, which I'm sure you're familiar with.
Very familiar with.
And then coupling it with 15 perf IMAX, we're the first to do that. So it was a very brave decision that I think was amazing for the story because I think Ryan was very interested in putting, blues music, the African American kind of, experience in the South on display in this
Right.
beautiful way that's never been seen before. Because if you really want to see these images, the best way to see them is to see them projected on 70 millimeter
Of
in a,
course.
a grand way in a theater. And he was always thinking about that. So when we tested it, we watched it in a big theater, and we felt that, that heightened emotion for our ancestors, for the story he wrote.
Yes.
So it was a very thoughtful decision, but I think what it means is it's just like it's elevated. You've just now elevated, this whole experience that we know, Jim Crow South, in this really beautiful, epic way, which has never been done before. So it was very smart. He's very
Yeah.
smart.
Yeah, well, we
But we
know.
knew it in the room, like we tested it, and when you see that stuff, you can't go back. You look at it. It's very beautiful and it's very visceral. So
Yeah, one of my favorite shots that I feel gets, because the movie is just filled with just beautiful shots, beautiful sequences, and those like shots kind of like take up the cultural consciousness. But the one that always like really sticks out to me is that first shot of when Sammy wakes up, where he gets home, and he's standing on the porch of his house, and he's looking off into the horizon. And he has this
brilliant.
like beautiful like not only is Miles's performance in that moment just something like worthy of note, but it's kind of like this is like where you're seeing like why this format is made, right? It's kind of like this place that most people would consider with pain, the cotton picking fields, and just the low pay and like the humidity and the weather, and a lot of people wouldn't want to go back to that time. But I feel like in that shot it speaks to the African American experience where they find beauty in it, right? And
Mm.
even though he's in this situation, he's got up early, he's done the hard work, and now he's looking forward to this like night of beauty that's ahead of him. And I think that just kind of speaks to us. And it gets into my next question here is that doing it in this format, you alluded to this, it's a purpose for this because it speaks to
Yeah.
the grandness of our history, of our stories.
Yes.
And people really don't know this, but when it comes to like the IMAX format, 70 millimeter, what have you, people who look like us aren't really in those type of films a lot. And so seeing people like us in this way, it kind of like adds a little bit more grandeur to that history and everything, right? So I,
Yeah.
I want to ask you, just kind of like coming in on this and knowing that this is the purpose that Ryan is kind of put you on, did you feel a little bit of pressure of doing this justice, or was this just kind of like something you've been waiting to do because it's never been done before?
No, I always feel pressure when I especially with Ryan, because this is family now, but like the
Mm,
films that I choose to do, I always feel pressure because I only pick films that I feel like I have something to say, or, that
mm,
I'm supporting a good friend in their kind of visual journey that, and Ryan's a writer director. So when he puts pen to paper, he's not messing around,
yeah,
he's very thoughtful.
yeah,
And Uncle James, it was such a big part of his life and
hmm,
his memories of that experience he had with him when he was younger. It meant something to him, right? And I
right,
and I saw that, when he explained it to me, and I saw it in the script, and I saw his face every day when we're on the land in New Orleans. He's very happy,
hmm,
So you see all of that, you feel all of that from the person because I'm there for him,
hmm,
and you want to make sure you protect it. You want to make sure that your job is there to protect that feeling that you see in the person's face, and in their soul, and so yeah, I mean the technical stuff I love because I'm a nerd and I work that stuff out with my team,
right,
and that's part of my job, is to get that stuff out of the way, that so that when we're there in the church and we're standing in Hannah's set, and it looks beautiful and you feel like you're now transported
yeah,
to 1930s Mississippi, like it should feel real, and that's very important to me. So
yeah,
so yeah, it was definitely heightened. And I also think because my father was born in New Orleans,
hmm,
my aunties and uncles there's still people there. He put one of my aunts in the movie, so it's special. Like I'd been to the South when I was a kid, and so how that it feels down there.
yeah,
And there's a lot of beauty in that struggle as well. Like I think it's very personal to each family what the
hmm,
South means, but I think we all had kind of a history, with that space, and so we wanted to make sure that we made it look beautiful,
right,
but it was also accurate, and we made them shine because sometimes, yeah, it's depicted in a way that maybe is not as heightened or as elegant, and it should be because there was so much creativity back then as well. You see in Smoke and Stack, even in there, the way they dressed, or
yeah,
what Ruth did and what Hannah did with the sets, and it's beautiful,
yeah.
beautiful space to make a movie.
Oh my gosh. Speaking of beautiful space, like I grew up in Compton, California, and
Oh, cool.
and I dated my girlfriend a couple years ago, and she had family in Lancaster, which is where I knew you guys did a
Okay.
lot of the
Oh yeah,
testing.
where we shot our test.
And so I know what Lancaster looks like. I know like the beauty of the flatlands, like when you see the sun goes down, when you see the sun rise, and the horizon is just something like absolutely like gorgeous. I want to talk about just kind of like that first scene, right? And you see that first, well, not the first scene, sorry. It's the first scene that appears in the script that a lot of people don't know about,
Ah, yes, of course.
which is
Remick.
where Remick first appears, right? And that
Hmm.
looks like a Lancaster kind of like landscape. And when I saw that, I got like very emotional because it speaks to the beauty of like the environment, and also like I like that that was the first thing said in the script, because to me when I saw that part in the movie, it's almost fitting that that's like almost the second beginning of the
Yeah,
movie,
yeah.
right?
Hmm.
And so what I want to talk to you about is just kind of like that scene there was at first at the top of the script, but then it ended up moving down. Can you talk to
Yes.
me about kind of like, the decision to move it down, and like was it like a conscious thing to create a new beginning in that scene? And what was the evolution of that scene as like you guys were going through it?
Yeah, the scene itself, that I've talked about before, so I think people are aware. It on the page it starts the film off,
Mm-hmm.
and then in the editorial process is where Ryan and our awesome editor Michael Shaver decided to adjust it, right, because
Right.
it has its own life after you finish shooting it.
Mm-hmm.
And I think what I love about the film is the way in which every transition from 276 to IMAX I feel
Mm-hmm.
is so elegant and purposeful.
Yes.
And it's not that you always know those transitions ahead of time, right? Because your schedule when you're shooting a movie is can be all over the place, and you don't always shoot in consecutive order. Um, so I wasn't aware of that when I was shooting it,
Mm-hmm.
and this it's not like it was the first scene we shot or anything. But when I did read it on the page for the first time, I was so excited to shoot that scene. It's one of my favorite scenes. It
Mm-hmm.
plays like a western. And I remember asking Ryan, I was like, "Where'd you come up with this? It's so imaginative and
Yeah.
epic." Like when you read it, and that's what like kind of a good book is, right? You read the
Mm-hmm.
book, and your mind just starts racing of like all these images, and you feel inspired. And I remember reading it, going like, "This is gonna look awesome. I can't wait to shoot this scene."
Yeah.
And that's how it was, because Hannah built this amazing set. She built it from scratch on a piece of land that we found, and we adjusted it so that the sun would set behind it. We got very lucky on those days to
Mm-hmm.
have a sun set, not rained out or not cloudy.
Right.
Um, and I remember thinking, like, as we were shooting it, cranes and horses, and thinking it was very important. Like, it just felt important. That day felt important. And yeah, I think the thing with Ryan is, he's always thinking about his audience.
Mm-hmm.
So that scene itself is very epic, right?
Yeah.
It feels like an old time movie that you're transported to in that moment.
Mm-hmm.
Has a lot of scope. So yeah, I was delighted. I mean, for me, it doesn't need to start the picture or be in the middle.
Right.
It's such a great scene. Wherever they decide to put it, I was happy with.
Right.
Because the opener too is my favorite. With Sammy coming in
My
the church.
gosh. Yes.
Nothing's better than that, right?
Yeah.
So yeah, I was very excited when I saw the edit. But
Mm.
that day when we shot that scene in 2 days,
Mm-hmm.
out at the farmhouse. And so yeah, it was very felt. I don't know if you've seen. There's a picture of Ryan and I with the Choctaw. It's a black and white photo on the
Yeah.
porch.
Yeah, I've seen that. Yeah. Looks
Yeah,
great.
that's a very special photo. I got very emotional when we took that picture. Yeah.
See, now I gotta ask, because there's a lot of moments, because the thing that I get with you is that you lead a lot with emotion, and that kind of like informs kind of like the shots that you do, and obviously like it plays very, very well, because I get emotional whenever I see these shots. But I'm very curious, when you're making something and then you see it like on screen for the first time, kind of like come to the fruition, the edit's done and whatnot. What was the scene that kind of like got you the most emotional? Whether it was through like you were proud that you finished it, or it just kind of like affected you very deeply from a personal standpoint.
The church scene.
Mm,
Because it was very emotional when we shot that day. I felt like I was actually in like back in time.
yeah.
In a church in the 30s. And it's just a really nice way to open. And I remember just the way it's edited too.
Yes.
And
Oh
I
my
remember on
gosh.
the day, yeah, Ryan wanted it to be one shot where I come from the car and I was on the crane operating, and then it transitions into the next shot, and then the edit when the doors open
Right.
is very felt. And I love Salt. Like, his skin tone, the light, the costumes, everything's very beautiful. And I think it starts off in this way that lets you know we're here,
Yeah,
right?
yeah.
It's like we're here,
It's the
you know,
opening. It's yeah.
we're here, yeah. And it's an investment, right? Like you're now invested in these characters, and
Hmm.
Sammy is so beautiful, Miles, and so that one, and then the one, the thing is the one we just talked about, the farmhouse.
Yeah.
I think I'm named after a John Ford Western called Cheyenne Autumn.
Oh, okay.
So yeah, Ryan knows I love that. I love that stuff, and I think after I saw it cut together, because I think it's so beautifully cut.
Yeah.
Um, I just smiled. I got a bit,
Yeah.
emotional
That's
about that one.
I love that.
So those two. Yeah.
That's so incredible. Like going back to like that church scene, like I made a whole video just kind of like breaking down the beauty of the church scene, as well as kind of like the match cutting between like what happens at the opening of the film with his dad, and then like what
Oh,
happens with
cool.
him
I,
at the
I
rim.
don't think I saw that video because
Oh,
you have such cool videos. You got a lot of
oh,
videos. I
well,
gotta
thank
watch.
you, thank you. Listen, you
I'll
guys
catch
heard
up.
that. You guys heard that. Autumn said it.
Yeah.
But
Yeah.
I made this video talking about those match cuts and like kind of like what it means for like the emotion of the story, and kind of like what I like to call like Sammy's temptation, or
Mm.
Sammy's kind of like temptation of like he goes to church and he's offered kind of like fellowship and worship and like kind of
Mm.
like a life of peace, if you will, and then it match cuts with Remick, and he's perfectly matching with his father. And it's almost like he's getting the same type of deal, right? Like he's being offered to fellowship with this person, when in reality, and then that's kind of like what leads Sammy to kind of like choose his version of freedom, right? Which is the
Yeah.
music, right? Like Remick wanted him to be a part of his people, but he's like, I'm not giving my music to you. And then his dad wanted him to kind of like do it for the Lord, but he's like, well, this is from a stolen place. And I learned that hours ago when Remick was ripping my face up, right? All of this is just a
Yeah.
form of subjugation, and I would rather break free from all of that. And I found it very
Mm.
clever how the opening alludes to all of this, how like it's basically one and the same, and Michael just like completely like crushes that in the edit. It just comes off
Murdered.
really, really well. Murdered it. um
Yeah.
I want to talk about kind of like,
Everyone, right?
yeah,
Everyone's just like murdering performances
but
left and right.
But that's the thing. Like this is one of those movies, one of those films that just like you could tell everyone is firing on all cylinders. I was talking to we had Jamie in here in the studio a couple days ago, and I asked her, did you know that you were making something that would be considered generational, a masterpiece by today's standards? And she said that there was this kind of like electricity, this air, because everyone's kind
Yeah.
of like shorthanding with each other. Everyone's kind of like pushing each other. And I said it reminds me a lot of the like Showtime Lakers in the 80s, or how the Warriors play in the out in the Bay
Hmm.
from 2015 to 2022 now. So it's just really cool to just kind of like see that show up on film. I feel like there's a lot of films, especially like me as someone who like kind of views them through a critical lens, that it's like this part was great, but this part was lacking, and this part was awesome, but this part
Yeah.
could use a little work. But very few in like a lifetime, I feel you get a film that everything is just kind of like working together, and it just speaks to what you say, like it's a family that's working behind the scenes,
Yeah.
which is incredible. So I wanna also get into like kind of like the VFX, and I want to kind of like talk about what you mentioned before, is like matching the sky, because the sky is very important in this film, especially when we're dealing with the horizons, the sunset, the dark, the light. And I want to compare this a little bit to a film that I think is like very underrated when we talk about masterpieces, Nope, which is DP'd by one of your good friends, Hoyte, right?
Yeah.
And something that like shocked everybody was when you find out that a lot of those scenes are kind of the
Day for night.
nighttime scenes. They're shot in the day, right? And I want you to kind of like break down like why that wasn't an option for this film, and why kind of like actually using the beauty of the real sun, the real sky, and then kind of like just matching it to just kind of like remain a level of consistency, and not giving in to just, oh, we'll fix it all in post and just make it like what we want it to be.
Yeah. I mean, since I've worked with Ryan before, on a huge film
Mm,
that had a lot of different elements, we did a bunch of underwater stuff, and
mm,
I mean, that movie had everything, as you know. And so there's nothing like that we love more than doing everything in camera as much
mm.
as you can, right?
Right,
Because a film like that, there's make believe worlds. So there's some stuff that you can't do realistically.
right,
But the goal is always to root it in being authentic, because that's the best way to get emotion, right?
of
True
course.
emotion coming from something that's believable and authentic. And the audience feels that, when it's off, they feel it. Audiences are there to feel in this dark space for that 2 hours or whatever it is. And so it's something that I think we do now as a team, trying to, do as much in camera. And so with that kind of dogma, it means that, you have a scene, for instance, the one that we talked about, the farmhouse scene, where you can only shoot for, that beautiful 10-minute,
Right.
interval for blue hour. It doesn't last very long. And we all know that if you're going to only shoot in that 10 minutes, you could be there over a week shooting the scene, right?
Just coming back and
Which
coming
is,
back.
yeah, which you can't do. It's very expensive. So we have to logistically time out the day. And that's something I do with the assistant director and Ryan. And I have to be on top of like sun movement and, in an ideal world, the clouds aren't coming in, and really map out how I want to shoot things.
Right.
So I take advantage of the real sun. So it's not always shooting in order, which, you talk to the director about that and make sure that everyone's on board for that. But you also just have to map and give VFX, our VFX supervisor, who we worked previously on Wakanda Forever. He was the second unit supervisor. Him and I are good friends. We've known each other for a while. We're friends outside of work. So he essentially has to be on board to protect that, right? We're not making stuff up. We're not making shit up. That's my thing I say with him, is like, don't make shit up. And in order to do that, you have to be very clear with what you want. So, a lot of the shots on the porch, because we have a lot of dialogue between, people back and forth looking out, right, at the horizon. And so some of those shots were shot much earlier in the day, which means they're brighter. And you have to shape that light and time it in the grade as well to get it, to match that perfect moment, which is the sunset. And some of the shots in the film are at the right time of day. So that's a great reference for the VFX supervisor to have, because there's the real thing that you're trying to achieve as a whole, and then you're matching to that. And it takes a lot of work in post. My finishing colorist, Kostas Theodosou, who works on all the Christopher Nolan films, that was a scene that we spent a lot of time on to make sure that it felt real and looked really good, because, I think a lot of people feel that, and you're very aware of that moment when the sun sets, it looks very specific. Yeah. So you want to make sure it's good. So I'm not really, I don't like doing day for night. I don't like being on a night shoot.
Yeah. Yeah, no
one likes night shoots, but I like things to look accurate.
You do what you got to do to get like that most accurate thing.
Yeah, I mean, if you want something accurate, you shoot it for real, right?
Yeah, of course.
And then it doesn't mean that you can't, you can't adjust and make something look like it's night. But I do feel like it's a different look. It's a very specific look, day for night. Yeah. And yeah, I think that's kind of what we do. We make sure, Ryan's great because he involves me in post. Not all directors do that. It's very important to him that I'm a part of that collaboration after we wrap and after we are done shooting. I'm looking at the VFX reviews and giving my 2 cents about the lighting, because that's something that only your eye knows when it's off. Right. And you give notes on that. So I was actually talking to Greg Fraser the other day about that sequence because we had a talk, and he was like, why does it look like there's like so many dusk and dawn shots? It looks real, and I think it's just having that attention to detail in post and making sure that you protect that, and that things aren't that, like it doesn't look shitty when you do sky replacement.
Well, everybody, the audiences appreciate that. Like, the amount of work that goes into it, referencing something that's real versus creating something from, like you said, make believe. You're not making shit up. It's actually a reference of something that you filmed before. It's incredible. I know you have a hard out at 45, and I only have one question left. It's been gnawing at me, because one of my favorite scenes is Remick and the Rocky Road to Dublin scene. I feel like the way it's lit, I feel like the way it's, I feel like the blocking and everything is just superb. And like the way the vampire's eyes are glowing like around him as they surround him. But I feel like, and this goes to like something that you like to do. I remember you said you like to center like a lot of your like the characters in the frame, because like, they're the hero. Yeah. And when you think of the I Lied to You scene, and Miles is at the center at the very beginning of that scene before it starts to turn, and you look at the Rocky Road to Dublin scene, and it's almost like an inverse of what Remick wants. He wants that fellowship similar to what Sammy has. And
Hmm.
it's just a really cool kind of like hidden thing that I feel like most people don't recognize. But can you talk to me about kind of like those two scenes, the difference behind them, and were there any similarities that you said, okay, we are trying to like do an inverse of this, or it's just two separate things and they just look great because you're awesome?
Um, no, I think because remember I shot this a while ago.
Yeah.
Great question. Um, yeah, I tend to center punch. It's something that I think feels right to me. I shoot a
Hmm.
lot of anamorphic, so it's something I like the main character be central. I feel they're more powerful in that center, and I chase that center punch, right?
Right.
So if I'm doing overs or the character is moving, it's an operating thing where you really have to chase that so it's consistent and
Hmm.
it feels elegant and not forced. And it works in this format, right?
Yep.
So I'm bringing something that comes naturally, but it does work very well in this format
Right.
because you're blending two different, very aggressively different formats together. And
Hmm.
one of them, an IMAX format, you have to crop out the 276 from that tall
Right.
format, and so it helps when things are central, right?
Hmm.
Eyes and all of that stuff.
Yeah.
For the Rocky scene, I mean, we're playing in a like a nighttime pool
Right.
where there's very little electricity. And so for me, doing night exterior, I tend to like the source to come from the moon, which, the moon can create harder shadows. Like it can
Hmm.
be very bright at times. So I like to do top light. And I think for that sequence, because they were away from the lumber mill and there wasn't much
Hmm.
depth, right? Because in the middle of nowhere, I had to kind of create that depth with, where the characters were, but also like kind of putting a little bit of light on the background in the forest. But we had very big softbox and some balloons.
Hmm.
And I think there was so much going on in the scene that kind of caught your eye.
Hmm.
It's very moody, right? Because the
Yeah.
blacks are very beautiful.
Right.
Like I think I print some of that. I watched a print of those dailies, and I was very in love with the texture and the level of the blacks.
Yeah.
And so it looks great. Like I feel like they're doing all the work, right? The characters and all the kind of all the stuff they have, and then the eyes too, because a lot of them were contacts.
Hmm.
If you probably read.
Yeah.
But yeah, it's a fun little sequence. But I was very happy with the way it turned out exposure wise. And you also have to remember, I mean, this is not easy focus pulling
Hmm.
task.
Hmm. Yeah. I
I'm
bet.
asking my focus pullers, my A camera focus puller, Ethan McDonald, we're on a 50 mil, sometimes 80 mil close up wide open. Steady camming around dancing characters.
Mm.
Jack's foot comes in the air and goes down and then it pushes it on his face. I mean, this shit is hard.
Yeah.
So
It looks
so
hard,
yeah, so
but it
it
comes
turned
out
out
great.
beautifully. Yeah, I really like that scene. It's a fun scene.
Hmm.
So yeah, I don't think. I mean, Ryan could have said lots of things to me, but I don't
Hmm.
remember thinking that I was doing something.
Like an inverse between the two.
Yeah, I
I
don't
really
think
like
so.
to, I categorize myself as a professional overthinker, right? And so,
Yeah.
when I look at the, what Remick wants as a character from Sammy, and, there's this longing to fellowship as he once did a long time ago. And then you have Sammy who has accomplished that. And then he's trying to accomplish it outside. Like I look at like, just the way you center all these characters in these scenes, and there's just like a fascinating parallel that speaks to the character and the way you shot it. And it's like we said at the top of the pod, like everything has a purpose, right? So
Yeah.
hopefully when we get Ryan in here as well, we can like get that confirmation, and then I can hit you up and say we got it. This is
Yeah.
the answer.
Well, it's always lovely with Ryan because I think what we've developed now, because we've worked together for so long,
Hmm.
and done like these two big ass movies. Um, he's always looking out for me, or I'm looking out for him. And there's been many a time where I'll frame something up, and he'll come over and explain something to me that's something thoughtful or
Right.
an adjustment as to why. He's very thoughtful. Like
Right.
the camera's in the right place. The camera has purpose. And like you said, like we're always leading with emotion.
Hmm.
Like I found someone to work with that also appreciates that, and that's leading with emotion. And if you do it correctly and the people care that are making it behind the camera, the audience feels that.
Yeah.
Like not to say that there have been maybe other situations or movies where people were there was
Yeah.
trauma or something and it was a good movie, but I feel like for this picture you can really feel because the response is so crazy. You know, the people that made it were being very thoughtful about what they were saying and the history, you know, our history and the ancestors. Like, we were trying to make them proud, that's for sure.
Yeah, you know, I could have got on here and did a whole podcast episode off that surreal montage because it is just a generationally, like, I think it's a scene that we're going to be talking about for the rest of the history of cinema, and it just does elicit so much emotion. It's the first time that I started tearing up when I saw twerkers, like, in a scene. You know, because I've talked about this before, but I feel like twerking has always been looked down upon as like an art form in and of itself, a dance art form, but it is a very tried and true one in the annals of like African American history. So the fact that that was included within that, I thought that was just absolutely beautiful. But I just want to say, like, before we get out of here, is that your love, your passion, along with like Ryan's and Mike's and everyone, it comes through in this film. You feel it. I feel like there's levels of how much you feel the passion in film. Like, I feel like everyone who makes film has a passion for it, but whether or not that comes through, that remains to be seen. But I feel like Sinners is just undeniable in that way, and I'm just so happy that it's getting the love and accolades that it deserves. I remember watching it for the very first time with Ryan when he was watching it in the Formax and Playa Vista, and I remember looking at him.
Were you there?
I was there.
You know what? I think I remember that. Wasn't like Raphael Sadiq there too, or
Yes.
like?
Yes.
Was Boots Riley there?
Boots Riley was there too. He and I sat the same row.
I remember that. I didn't get to meet you that day.
Yeah.
That was the day I remember it wrapped, right?
Yes.
And he looked at me and I looked at him and I was like, did we just make that?
No, seriously. Literally. Like
we both looked at each other like, what the fuck?
I had my best friend with me, and I looked at him. I said, "Bro, I think I just witnessed a masterpiece, bro." I always get nervous when I ever like watch a movie before a lot of people because like there's always that chance of you love it, but then the general public just doesn't. You're like, "Am I crazy?
For sure.
What is it?" And when it's something like this on this magnitude that like I hail as a masterpiece, I was like, am I like insane? And so I was waiting for that like consensus, and I'm glad that the consensus is that. But being there,
funny, I remember that.
Yes,
so cool.
Wow, we were in the same place and didn't even know.
No, you had to jog my memory because it was a while ago. But Ryan's special like that. Like you just, you know how it is. You know the man. So I was making that film with him. I saw him every day. Like. There was something brewing. I'm sure Jamie touched on it too, right? Yeah. It was just, there was something special. And then to see it put together like that, I was very impressed by, how they put it together and how it felt at the end. Because, you make it, but you don't see it.
Right. And
in that room with you. Yeah.
Oh my God. There was a moment where like, it was during the surreal montage. I'll never forget this, where as soon as the break dancer comes in, I turned around to Ryan and be like, "You fucking madman!" And it just completely took my breath away. And it's how often do you get to share that experience with the makers of the film? And it's I'll hold that with me for the rest of my life. So
recently we were doing Q&A, and I forget who it was, but someone had mentioned to Ryan that's kind of like his solo, or something.
Yeah, his guitar solo.
Because it was on the page, written so beautifully, but so imaginative. So you never know the execution of it. It's a very collaborative thing to create a oneer, and it can be very complex.
Yeah.
But it's so him. Like I would say, in doing oneers with him on Wakanda, and then having this oneer, it means something. He's always creating these kind of things where they mean something, and so you don't want to feel the technical. You want the audience to tell you, did it work? And clearly it did. And so I even get emotional when I see that, because in the theater you feel the sound, Oh,
you know what I'm talking about? Yes, 100%.
The bass kind of reverberates when
that goes that scene where everything just kind of like the record scratch, and then that boom, and then oh my gosh, oh my gosh, like that moment. In the moment where we see the I don't want to like mispronounce, but I believe it's the one in the mask, where like they're doing that dance, and the way Ludwig punctuates that moment with that it really like just does something to my soul. And I just like sometimes I will watch it on YouTube and I'll just rewind that part because it just affects me that much. But I know you got to get out of here. But again, like I'm just so happy that you were sitting here to talk with me today, and thank you for taking the time.
Pleasure.
Out.
No.
Congratulations.
No, we definitely have to. Talk again.
No, let's actually absolutely talk again. Let me know when you're in LA, and then we could talk about everything in between this film and like whatever you're working on, or just like life. Just hang out as people,
Yes. No, it's a pleasure. It was nice to meet you. So again at IMAX, we've met twice now.
I know. Look at that. We're gonna keep meeting for the rest of our lives, I feel like.
Yes.
Well, thank you so much, Anna, for talking to me.
Thanks,
And
Gigi.
then, guys, thank you so much for watching and or listening. Remember, you can check out the podcast on YouTube, on Spotify, but mainly on iHeartRadio, where now we have a budget. Congratulations to us. And guys, make sure you see Sinners in any format, whether it's re-release, HBO Max, or just watch the movie if you haven't already. Like, who hasn't seen the movie already? And as always, if you like talking about movies, can I be your movie guy?